Hello. This is slightly past week 19. This is a Monday and I'm very naughty. But what it is it's more so everybody who is influencing me with this book is naughty. They've been making full use of Lionsgate, and I think I probably have, well, I'm already at maybe close to 50 photo collages for not only the photo diary, but for the predictions. They came through with so many pertinent predictions, and they tied so many. They basically opened all the file paths in my mind. Finally, I've been waiting for that to happen for years. And everything's interconnecting, and so we were already working on that. You could already see it in previous photo diaries from the past 3 months. But it's basically like it's on an acid trip right now, and God only knows how many pages it's going to be. I was taking extra time. I got to the point where I worked through enough of the connections and got enough of the work done in photo form, in collage form, so that it's clear, like I don't have to remember things. I've got it down. But in terms of formatting it and printing it out, I had to stop. My mind actually just shut down. I looked at the computer screen. I transferred a lot of the work. I've done about half the work in terms of pulling it together. I've got all the photographs. I need the phone. We need to pray for my phone, or I need to pray for my phone. Hang on, I'll turn the fridge off. Yeah, the phone needs to be cleared out big time. So there needs to be time allowed at some point for doing that. And I'm not sure when, because I've really got to get, I sidelined my work with beginning of drawing by a week to do this, but I knew it was time sensitive. It needed to be done because they just sent me so much information. There wasn't a way around it. So, so really this is, so that's why I pushed. I was hoping to print out, but at least to make sure that I walked away from it at a time that I had everything set in my mind. So here we are. So here we are on the 2nd. And of course, the portal opened right around sort of roughly Sunday, let's say. But they started well ahead because we had the Aquarius full moon, and Taro Victoria was so right about the dreams and the visitations. Even my own Aquarius reading for the Gemini solstice, solar eclipse, the Gemini solar eclipse. I have an Aquarius moon, and it ended up being, I knew the title was unusual enough that it clicked. It was very clear to me, and it ended up being a fairly personal message. I think it's on point for everyone, but I wasn't surprised when it didn't go anywhere. It totally came true, and I ended up in fairyland completely. Right, so things that there's a lot that I learned. I just went and got a few things. Fake siren. So I thought I would, yeah, what am I doing? They're doing that. Nope, they're not going to stay. Okay, we'll put them to the side. All right. Venus. It turns out, because we're going to get into who's helping you in this house. What guides. Now, the thing is, like, what goes on specifically in 7th house? What is 7th house about, and who would specialize in helping you with 7th house? So I'll do some housework here first, just to show just to prove that I've been finishing everything up. I've got August calendar printed here. We do have, okay, so we've got this much more to go. We've got the peak day, right, for Lionsgate on this coming Sunday, on the 8th, 8/8, which is aligned with the new moon in Leo. And then we have this month, we have, well, Mercury, nothing, I don't know what's unusual. Uranus going retro, yay. In Aries, yeah. He just finished. He got from the front hoof to the back hoof, and now he's gonna go retro, and we'll see how well and how long does Uranus go retro for. We'll find out. I've got it in here. I just can't remember. So then we have the other full moon. We had a sort of, well, we had an Aquarius full moon, yeah. And now this one, the moon is still going to kind of, they're going to say it's another Aquarius full moon, but I feel like, according to what the research I did, it's like a split. It's another split. It was like we had a Sagittarius split Capricornus moon, then the Aquarius moon, and now we're going to have a split Aquarius Pisces moon. So split energies as far as I'm concerned. And then by the end of the month, Mercury's going to go direct in Virgo. So that's me looking ahead because I'm overlapping. But of course, I'll come back to this when I'm back in a few days with the first week of Gemini's house, of the third house. But I wanted to get that. I'm going to put August's calendar over with Gemini's stuff. This is how thick the book's getting, yes. And I'm still just on that second cartridge, that second magenta printer cartridge. And I still have the original other color cartridges in there, in the black cartridge from before I started the book. So I got an overview printed of predictions, okay? There were 3 predictions. Well, there are 2 predictions I got, 2 card readings I got my dad to do for me. He's also an Aquarius. He's a Gemini rising. Aquarius season baby with a Capricorn moon. No, God, Capricorn sun. Now, what's interesting is he has his Mars and his Mercury in Sagittarius. So his heart and his mind are right next to each other in the same Sagittarius energy, and it has been one hell of a ride with that person, okay? And we have what's going to turn out in the chart, I've got Venus's page here. I have this, I was talking about quincunxes last time, the 150 degree, and I have several of them, but it's like an impossible relationship to try to, it requires significant creative ingenuity to reconcile these placements with each other, and so a lot of comedians tend to have these placements in their charts. So check your chart, like I've said before, for quincunxes, and then there's a biquintile, which is just slightly smaller than a quincunx. And these are also master placements, master teacher and master mediator placements. 150 degrees and 144 degrees with orbs of about plus or minus 3 degrees, right? So you can go from 153-ish degrees to 147 degrees for the quincunx, and like 141 to 147 degrees for the biquintile. So the 147 degrees is very interesting split because it's the midpoint between the quincunx and the biquintile. So I had found some very interesting writings about that I credited last time. I'll put a video together of the things that I've been learning, like with visuals, like not this kind of visual, but actual screenshots and stuff that are easier to look at. But see how my Venus is quincunx with Uranus. Venus is the child of Uranus in Western, in your, northern, well, turns out much of Mediterranean Europe is very African. If we get access to the right information and the right artifacts, yes. But shall we say the whitewashing, the names that whitewash everything from black ancestors, African ancestors, and we call them Venus and Uranus and name them planets after them, right? But let's just say, based on a tremendous amount of psychological application to the planet so far that we still need to dig through. But there could be layers of Masonic truth to it, yes? That's why I still entertain the notions. But Venus is the child of Uranus. Venus was born because Uranus's balls got cut off, right? Was it Saturn that did it? And dropped into the ocean, yes. And then the foam, blah, 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 and we've got Venus. Now, there's another interesting relationship. Venus and Mars gave birth to Eros. And there's a book by C.S. Lewis that I've been very well, I grew up in a C.S. Lewis Narnia home. and had problems with what he did with the character of Susan. A lot of sexism there, and he's answering for it with me ever since. But he wrote, the last book he wrote was Till We Have Faces, and it's a retelling, a fictionalization of a myth, but it's his telling, it's his reworking of the relationship between Psyche and Eros, the son of Venus and Mars, and the curse that Aphrodite puts on Psyche, because Psyche is deemed to be more beautiful than Venus, and Venus is the reigning god. Yes, goddess. So there's all this psychology that has been close to, because I've been alone with my dad since my mom died when I was just before I turned 13. And these Aquarius, I mean, it's just been very much, this is going to completely describe that relationship. So I'm finding what that means generally is I'm finding that the planets start to take on, they start to communicate the relationships to me. Just like last month, I found out how much my Neptune is my situation between me and my son. The Neptune years, the Neptune cycles all match at, key years between me and my son, and things that made it so that I definitely had my son, right? That I didn't go in any other direction except straight towards where I would get pregnant with him, and then that key things that needed to happen in his life happened, right? So then Uranus, but then then I was looking into Jupiter, because I have Jupiter in one of my 7th placements, right? I'm between whole house, in the whole house system. Venus is in my Taurus constellation, and I'm a Taurus season baby, but a Scorpio rising. But Venus is in Taurus for me, and in my whole house 7th, in the whole house system, in my 7th house. So it's like a crazy amount of Venus energy in my life. Not to mention, Jupiter is in my Regiomontanus house system of 7, right? The 7th house placement. And Jupiter, the effect that Jupiter has on houses, and what kind of energy Jupiter brings in. Plus, right next to Jupiter is Lilith. So Jupiter's stuck right between Lilith and Venus for me. So this is it explains, now that I get into it, right? It explains and understand it. So I was looking up this situation between Venus and Jupiter. And it turns out, in terms of long-term romantic relationships, the Venus-Jupiter dynamic is almost more on point than the Venus-Mars dynamic. But again, I can't say that I've explored the Venus-Mars dynamic as deeply as I've explored recently, just now, right? The Venus-Jupiter dynamic. It is very true. Jupiter in Vedic astrology is carrying very much a, how do they put it, puritanical energy, like an asexual, not asexual because it's not sexual at all, it's like a saint, right? He's like a saint energy that just like, not that sex can't be saintly. What am I saying? He's abstinent, and he can create abstinence. Not that I'm anything like abstinent, but but he's very much it's very spiritual energy, apparently, according to them. And so, of course, and represented by the wheel. So when I get into what happened to me, they took me deep into my, I'm in my 4th house season right now. So they combined the 7th house of others with the house of roots, right? And they took me down all my roots rabbit holes, okay? And combined that with what I need to know about from the Celtic perspective of things, yes? So, are we even still recording, or have I exhausted the camera yet? Because my dad comes along with me on the journey, right? Bit by bit, I wasn't sure that he would want to get into tarot and astrology, but then I knew he had an inner sorcerer. He got me into Tolkien and Narnia from the get-go. and certainly I have my issues with them as much as with anybody. And Tolkien, now the dead army that he has. Now I don't want to. This is too specific to me, I realize. But what I'm getting at is I helped Dad step into his own magical experience. Yes, his own. I've been keeping him on his path, or getting him onto his path. And so this past month, I got him to do readings for me. We're very Irish and Scottish and English, okay? Probably almost even splits. We're O'Neills from Ireland. We're McLaughlins and Pattersons in Scotland. I'm a Ross from Scotland, and I'm also a Howe and a Tripp, and what am I forgetting? Nash. What else am I forgetting? Doesn't matter. We're going to focus on the O'Neills, the McLaughlins, the Rosses. And I know that if we go back to my dealings with all the Aquino twits in mind control that are out there making lives miserable. Michael Aquino was a Campbell, and a Scottish Rite Campbell. And Campbells and Rosses and McLaughlins all have a history. And so what I did was I got Dad, we picked out 2 Celtic tarot decks for Dad months ago. And so he was reading for me from the Celtic, one was the Tarot of the Celtic Fairies, and the other one is, it's a Lo Scarabeo Celtic Tarot with Spanish and Italian designers. It's fabulous. But 3 Queens came out, and the 2 of Stones, and something else. But so I researched the Queens, and my God, I can't even, when I get it all printed out, see, I've made a list of, these are the things that I have left. Yes, can you see the pencil marks? These are the things that I have left. I've got them all photographed. I just have to organize them and coordinate them. I need to really recommend Miss Zodiana. These are, I needed to condense and crop how many messages that they'd given me. When they told me that they told me and I needed to go back and remember what they told me. This is what they told me that I needed to remember from like the week previous, a few weeks ago. And I went back and I turned the captions on, right? And I've got everything from several readings from her. And I know that I need to keep track of it all because it's what I need to stand in, to stay in. She gets very specific messages. It's always great, isn't it? But the green that comes through, so I track down the Green Lady, and what's going to come through specifically is Green Lady and the Green Man. Things that we need to know about the Green Lady, but even more so, generally, the Green Man and his role through history, and he's not just middle-age, medieval European. No. He goes way back, and he's all over the world, okay? So they did that thing where they take him from everywhere. But the prominence that he has with Masonic imagery, the Senate House in Parliament Hill in Canada is full of Green Man carvings into the stones, okay? It's one of the deep magics, okay? And you probably there's a good chance you already know this. But anyway, so there's so many ways that Gwendolyn McEwen, the McEwen Castle is like this far away from the McLaughlin Castle. And literally like within just a couple of miles of each other, right? There's just my Ross family is up in Sutherland. No, is it just south of Sutherland? So, but there are dots that connect that I can't even start to describe right now without just totally derailing this whole video into my stuff again. But in terms of where they took me, I've got stuff that isn't connected to family, but is connected to, a lot of family stuff came through. I did manage to go, it was in with my paperwork. I just panicked and I didn't see it, and I went back. I was like, today, I was like, no, I'm going back and I'm sure it's there. My grandmother's birth certificate, that I got in 2016. I paid to get it from London, and it has her listed in Shoreditch, and they must have changed the classifications, because when I look the address up in Google Maps, it's listed as Hackney now. And so I've got the photo of the apartment, right? It's got an external door. It's one of those buildings where all the doors are external. And I've got the photo now of her, the apartment that she lived in, that she was born into, right? And it has a blue door. And when I look up, you know my thing with blue, when I first look up the address where they take you to, it's actually her access to the buildings on a side street. When you go to the Google location for the street that's listed here, you look, there's a main entranceway, and the first door you can see up 1 or 2 levels is a 42, right? So Douglas Adams answers 42, life, universe, and everything. It turns out that the location for one of the characters, there's this book I'm writing, yes? And it connects all these dots that I've been working on since 2015 with D.H. Lawrence and Paul Gallico. And I have an older character, a senior character on this bus. It takes place on a bus, or it starts on a bus anyway. Sex comedy novel. And one of the first 3 characters, she gets off the bus, and I determined years ago, before I went and checked this address, that she would get off at Falkirk on Kingsland Road. My grandmother's home is literally, now they don't use the term blocks in the UK, but it's literally 1 block away from that bus stop. Well, not quite the bus stop, but from Falkirk. You can't, you know, it's just another thing. Now, that might mean nothing right now if you haven't watched any of my other videos, but once I'm done the website, or even as I start to build the website for that whole story, because I'm going to get into writing the final drafts, but like, seriously, I know that I found out, I ended up, because of looking into the Green Lady and the fairy folk connected to the Green Lady, and she haunts, yes, but she's also like goddess. She's also one of the fates, yes, and she's got their castles everywhere. The castle, the card that the Green Lady that they use in the Tarot of the Celtic Fairies, she is specific to Skipness Castle, and Skipness Castle is exactly the one closest to McLaughlin Castle that has the Green Lady. So, what else? The Magic Circle and the Water Rats Club. I came into, because of looking into the Green Lady and the hauntings and everything, I came into contact with a Welsh castle, Caerphilly. And I'm going to be saying it wrong because it's Welsh. But Tommy Douglas, no, not Tommy Douglas, God, Tommy Cooper. Tommy Douglas is another thing. Tommy Douglas founded the National Democratic Party in Canada, but he was also an Orangeman. So I've got a whole game plan for that. But anyway, took me down to Tommy Cooper rabbit hole, or Tommy Cooper took me down a rabbit hole because of the Green Lady being attached to a castle that's attached to the town that he's from in Wales. And that's how I discovered the Water Rats and the Magic Circle. Both of them are deeply Masonic, and they are both close to locations in my book. But more importantly than that, they tie to my Hampstead work. So, yes, I've looked up Green Giant. I've looked up the Hulk. I've looked up even Wolverine from the X-Men. He's the Green Man. There's the Green Man with Albert Finney. There's, but of course, once we get into the Hulk, then we got Bill Bixby, and Bill Bixby we've already referenced with the Magician and Carol Lindley, who's all tied to my work on the novel through Paul Gallico and Poseidon Adventure, tying back to Gwendolyn McEwen. So, what is Venus all about? how do I make this relevant to you? But what I'm saying about all that is you can actually, I found a guy in Australia, a Patterson, who's a grandpa now, and so he did the DNA test, and he did a lot of legwork and put it up on a website, and that solved many things for me in terms of cues of where to look and go, you know. And so basically they have me tying up a lot of my own genetic roots as much as I want to, and tying it into the experiences and the beliefs and the faith. Now, Jupiter in the same deck is represented by Angus something something. And so I looked him up. And he's very much tied to the Green Man energy. He completely is the Green Man. And I have a long history with Ireland. And since we started in Scorpio with that, so I went and found this today, my little envelope that I keep 2 things in, you know, some leftover money and a ticket at Swim Two Birds, a performance in the Cork Opera House, which was in dire straits, dire need at the time that I was there in 1995. We were stuck when I went over with Dad. Yes, in 1995 I was 17, and we were kept, shall we say, in Cork, and we went out to Skibbereen for a day. We stayed in Cape Clear, where Ciaran, C-I-A-R-A-N, the Ciaran's ring is out there, and I named my son's middle name is Ciaran, named for that because I liked it. And so ties that bind. But one of the things at the hostel we were staying at, Sheila's, we were there. They were starting to feel so bad for us because we just were not succeeding at getting out of town. But it was meant to be, right? The fairy folk were keeping me there. And so they gave us tickets to this at Swim Two Birds, which is based on a book by Flann O'Brien, comedy genius. And I was the youngest thing in the audience, and they used me as a prop 3 times, including putting a gun to my head. But at Swim Two Birds, this Angus, this Green Man, becomes a swan with the love of his life, who shapeshifts to a swan. So 2 birds. Yes. Here I just keep this out because it's the last time I was in Dublin, because I ended up in a relationship. I have a very deep personal history. For about 10 years I went off in my, in my own experience of life. I went off with somebody in my mind, spirit-wise. And we could say very much a Kundalini experience. But, and he said, no, in about 10 years, stay on course, and in about 10 years, this'll happen for you in the 3D. Okay, I'll arrive in the 3D, or whoever it is. And I thought it was, and at the time I was still leaving the church. And so there was like, who the heck am I dealing with here? And sure enough, to the day, almost exactly to the date, there were 3 people that came into my life right before, David Schurter, Tracy Morris, and then Martin. I'll spare Martin's last name from this because I know Martin wouldn't be happy with me. But it's Martin that I ended up with right on time. And it was no accident. And I'd even had a dream about Martin in 2013. And I didn't know it until 2018 when I found the paperwork for it that took me 4 hours to write up the dream back in 2013. So, yes, what I'm pointing to is the truth of this Jupiter. Now, why is it true? Why isn't it a Mars energy? How can I be so sure that, well, I'm going by the wheel card in the tarot deck that has Angus on it, and the history, the mythology around Angus, and the energy, and the Green Man energy, and everything that's been steering my life. And once I figured out this Green Man stuff, I was like, oh, it's so primal right now. There's a deeply horrific side to Green Man and Green Lady energy. This is the difficulty of magic. This is the difficulty of spirit. Yes? I'm not saying it's a good side. I'm saying what can be done with it is horrific. What I know from survivors and victims of ritual abuse. Yes? And I'm talking governmental, military, tied in with cult, yes. What goes on to them goes, you know, what's done to them in the energy, that in the mimicked energy of this, yes, is just, you know, you don't need me to say it because I'm sure you've already come across it. But so that's why all the stuff with Hampstead matters, all the stuff with digging into knowing, like having the full context, yes, because I've figured out that I don't actually think that I have any contracts except with God. I don't think that I buy into soul contracts and twin flames anymore. Easy, I think they exist if you, it's like karma, it's like, it's there. Did you say yes? Is it your thing though? It can be other people's thing. It might not, it might be similar to what you have, and then what I find out is like, but nobody in my life reciprocates as if they're aware that they have a soul contract with me. So I do what I'm supposed to do for people, and then it either builds into something, or we pay it forward, or they decide, you know, that they don't want anything to do with it. So this Venus thing of these long-term situations, right? I really think like I'm rogue, and I come in and I bring the possibility because you need the context. You need to like, I do the Libra thing of digging into empathizing, understanding, and researching, right? Libra, the embassy, was the embassy the right choice for Libra? Let's get the right visual. This is just me showing that I got through the paperwork. I went through and made sure that I caught up. Sometimes I fall behind with these because I wait to get perspective on what I'm going to write there. But I go in and I get them all done, and I do all my math, right? And see exactly how much I'm in trouble financially. But we're getting there. I went back in and I added this about Tahuti Naturals, Nathan Howard's work. And it's very important to know what's been done to Nathan Howard. But again, Amenta and Libra symbol. So I'm going to keep this out while I'm talking about Libra as the embassy, as the home of cultural diplomacy in the best possible sense. You know, backroom dealings, of course, and, you know, all kinds of shit. Probably tons of trafficking go through there, you know, like everything that's bad. But in theory, being cultural ambassadors, right? Understanding people through how they express themselves. So I think I'm right on the money with sticking with the embassy compound. I watched some more videos about that. So in terms of who's helping in this house, lots of paper. Some people who are good with paperwork, people who are good with, again, diplomacy, people who are good at empathizing. Not that everybody of in your guides wouldn't be, but people who have a mind for the negotiating and the details in a way that is communicative, not in the Scorpio Capricorn way of like singular minded, and that's involved, yes, but in terms of conversation, yes, right? So what do I want to say that was coming through? I'll let it go for now and progress more paperwork. I'll keep this near the top in case I think of it, but let me just see. Let me get to the page where we're talking about who's helping. The idea that, you know, if Libra's the path to heaven, if Libra's all about heaven and the 7 and the scales, the 42, again, Green Man takes us to the Emerald Tablet, that I just started learning about. I'm certainly not going to, thanks. I mean, it's got 42 in it. So I've got screenshots of all the information about that. The Emerald Tablet, also the Green Glass Grail. You know, there's a lot. it can be solved within a few days. You just need a few days to dedicate to it, and you need to let your mind fill up a bit, but the dots will start to connect, and then you'll go back through things that you were exposed to culturally and go, oh, so that's that. Robin Hood is just, you know, again, then we get into the serpent cultures, the serpent cults, shall we say, which isn't necessarily a fair way to put it, right? Takes us right back to Mummy Wata, takes us back to the Delphi oracles. This all takes us back to Delphi oracles, the African prophetesses, the snake culture, which of course the snake culture is prevalent around the world. Takes me back to DH and his green dragon in his Apocalypse book, which got me started on all of this in the first place, back in 2015. So the search for God, Libra, the search for God, and then the diplomacy and the interfacing with people, the connection with people, connecting with people to understand the common experiences or the different experiences, yes, what the priorities are. And then that's involving trade and, the commerce of it, the survival, the mutual, how do we look after each other? What is this commune that we can build together? But of course the multinationals get there ahead of everybody, because the multinationals are built off the secret societies, yes, that know all this magic to begin with. So I listed like all the journeys that are involved in this. So that my search for God, the Six of Swords that's so prevalent in my chart with my planet placements, my journey to heaven, my search for home, family, long-term work contracts, my Uranus journey to my Nine of Cups, because my placement of Uranus, what I did was I went into tarot, and let me get, right, so I go here and I look at my Uranus, and I line up a ruler, yeah, I think I've done this in another video, okay, and I just look for where it hits Scorpio, and then the constellation of Libra, and then the whole house, which is 12th house, and the 10th house, which is the Regiomontanus system, right? And you get a very layered but precise story, okay? And I just, in terms of looking at them in thirds, yes? The 10 degrees of the 30 degrees, because that's how the tarot will correspond, right? So look, I've got my Mars right there. Now I have some planets share. I'll just do the one planet, because otherwise I know it's too much now. I just have to figure out where the hell the tower went. Okay, what? I think I'm so clever. Okay, Uranus, for me that's Uranus, yes? So, in Scorpio season, he hits the 5 and 6 of Cups. It's a split right where he hits, okay? So that's the start of my Uranus experience in life, the 5 and 6 of Cups. Okay? Then we hit Libra, and we're going to hit that 6 of Swords. He's one of the 6 of Swords placements. And now I have to remember where... I was debating whether or not I was going to do this. That's why it's not all perfectly set, ready to go. And maybe 6 of Swords aren't even here, because they're somewhere else on the table. That's so helpful, Kristen. Okay, I'll pause in a second and get this done. I thought I brought them along, but I guess I didn't. Okay. Be right back. I'll show you my Venus as well, though.